Hello, good morning, everyone. And for those who are watching us on other or different time zone, good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. And my name is Marilyn. For those who are first time in this platform, I am the CEO and founder of Customized Training Solutions or CTS, and we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co-creating, contextualizing, customizing programs with our world-class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from over 30 countries in different industries, and that includes Petronas, Sony Mobile, ProLife UK, Chevron, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, and Shell, to name a few. And the reason why we are organizing several interventions, including this interview, is because we would like to help leaders who would like to stay relevant and adapt to this next normal, those who find it stressful to lead and ensure performance of a hybrid team, and those who would like to keep their team and their business. So, to be able to stay relevant and continue to lead more effectively in any situation, join us. And for today, it's my great pleasure to introduce Miao. She's the Chief Information Officer of GLP, responsible for all aspects of technology across GLP and oversees the company's global data and digital strategy. Before joining GLP, Miao was the Global Chief Information Officer and board member of Mars Pet Care, driving digital transformation and innovation. And prior to that, she was Vice President and Chief Information Officer of Johnson& and Johnson. Miao has more than 2 decades of international IT industry experience across diverse industry, including oil, energy, natural resources, as well as consumer goods and healthcare. She has lived and worked in China, Switzerland, the Netherlands, Singapore, and Belgium, and held leadership positions at Royal Dutch Shell, Nestle, and Golden Agri Resources. In 2019, she was named as the Chief Information Officer of the Year for Europe and by International Data Group, and also received the reward of Global CIO 100, and she was named CIO 75 in ASEAN in 2021. So without so much further ado, I'd like to bring in Meow. Hi, Meow.
Hi, Marilyn. Nice
Marilyn,
meeting
nice.
you.
It's my pleasure to have you. And before we start, I actually would like to invite our audience who's watching us live or even on a replay to please join us in this conversation. Ask your questions, or if you have like aha moments during the conversation, please do join us. It's not just about, me and Meow having this conversation. And then I'm super excited because Meow and I haven't known each other personally, but we've been connected on LinkedIn, and that's the power of social media, I would say, right? And I'm super impressed with her profile. You've heard it, and I hope I gave justice to the introduction as well. So, without so much further ado, Meow, please share with us your leadership experiences, and if you have like a favorite influencers or leadership style that you'd like to share with our audience, please do so.
Sure, thank you so much. So when we talk about leadership, I think there are a lot of buzzwords, right? So I remember at the early career of my early career, and I kept on reading books from the
Mm-hmm.
top leaders in the world to learn what leadership was about. I remember I vividly years ago, probably 2 decades ago, I read a book from Jack Welch, who was the CEO of GE at that time. He talked about winning behaviors of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that worked probably 2 decades ago for the company at that time, but it probably doesn't work today anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the reason why I brought this example is leadership is very personal.
Mm-hmm.
It's very style based, and also it's very situation based.
Mm-hmm.
There's no single book There's no single role model can solve the
Mhm.
leadership issue. Look at the complexity of the world we're facing to different industries, the
Mhm.
recession, economy. We just came from COVID, but then we have war, and then we also have the whole situation around economy. So leadership now is super important. I think my personal experience told me that leadership has to be authentic. You
Mhm.
got to be an authentic person. First, you have to be a human being. You got to be an authentic person to really show leadership in whatever you do on a daily basis. So the second one I want to put there is leadership doesn't matter. It doesn't
Mhm.
relate to your hierarchy. So some people may mess up of leadership and
Mhm.
also people management. For
True.
me, leadership is not telling people what to do. For me, leadership is actually inspire people, making people perform the best of them in whatever they do in their day-to-day job. For me, that is leadership. Yes, you may have different styles. You may have Western styles. You may have Eastern style. You may have Asian styles. But in the end, the essence of leadership is all about inspiration, make people to be their best.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience and for sharing your journey around leadership, especially the influencer that you have. And what I like most about what you've said is really like leadership is about being human. It's very personal. It's something situational, right? And that boils down to like my question, like, what's your favorite leadership style, which, as you mentioned, right, there's no such thing because it has to be personal and situational at the same time. So having said that, um how what is leadership for you
Leadership
in
for
your
you, sorry,
experience?
leadership for me is actually a few things, right? So I can use some examples. The first thing I talk about was situational. And
Mm-hmm.
when I think you have to adjust your style
Mm-hmm.
or even different actions based on the situation you were facing to. For me, I worked and lived in 5 countries
Mm-hmm.
in the last 20 years. I did most of my time I was with global companies. I did
Wow.
various jobs. And my learning was that, you really have to adjust. I think the first time when I moved from Asia to Europe, taking a more important leadership role, I actually had some momentum that I felt myself lost
Mm-hmm.
because coming from Asia as a global leader, your leadership style may not be well accepted
Mm-hmm.
by the Western world, right? I mean, specifically, even in the Western world, the leadership and style are so different. So my
Right.
first aha moment and learning was you don't have to change yourself to be a different person to meet sort of leadership skill sets or leadership style. So that is the first learning I had. And I adjust it, but I don't adjust the true part of me. That is what I think. The second one, I think the leaders has to be bold. You are selected as a leader because you can make a difference. That's why you have to really drive bold change, setting up bold target. When I call bold, it doesn't mean the
Mm-hmm.
hierarchy. It's
Mm-hmm.
very different concepts, right? So setting up bold objectives, really push the agenda through the organization. That is a leader about, right? You may have different styles, but the leader is all about setting up clear objectives,
Mm-hmm.
make it happen across the board. Sometimes leaders have to make tough decisions
Mm-hmm.
to move forward, and then often in that situation, the true leaders stand out regardless of hierarchy or seniority. That is
Mm-hmm.
how I see leader in my career momentum. I actually had a few chances where I actually had a turnaround situation.
Mm-hmm.
I had to turn around the project. I had to turn around the team through my own way. For me, that is a leader is about.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Again, like what you've said, it's not, it's really sticking to your like core values, being yourself, like what you've said, it's authenticity, right? At the end of the day, leadership is about authenticity. No matter where you actually work or move to, different cultures, and it's all about being bold. So thank you so much for reminding us what leadership is for you. And in my introduction, I made mention about defining and describing the next normal. I mean, the next normal, which is like what we have actually realized during the pandemic. So, like digital transformation is one of the key during that situation, right? So, how would you actually define or describe the next normal, if even, if you even believe that it exists, right?
We already in the next normal, right? So it's not like next normal is still yet to come. We have been next normal probably for more than a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So the next normal for me is unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you can't predict next normal by saying, hey, next normal is just hybrid working, you work from home, you go to office. That is very shallow understanding of next normal. I
Mm-hmm.
think for me, the next normal means there are more unpredictable
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, what we're facing today is unpredictable, right? We none of us knew this gonna happen
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, and I think for leaders, um, to be deal with the unprediction, which is super important around the leadership, right? So, because the next normal is none of us can predict, then we
Mm-hmm.
need to be fully adjustable. We need to be agile. We have to adapt in the situation very quickly. The leaders have to set up the strategy, direction, vision for the company based on the new normal very quickly. That
Mm-hmm.
is essence. I would call it agile leadership to deal with the next normal. I mean, there's no single source solve
True.
of this next normal. It's not about, hey, I work half time from home, half time to the office. That's next normal. Yes, that's on surface. That's next normal. But next normal is how you deal with the inflation, how you set up a strategy for your company to deal with the next inflation, how you
Mm-hmm.
predict the consumer behavior given what we have at the moment, how you adjust your business strategy to this changing world, right? To make sure your business overcome the overall challenges across the board. That is leadership, and that is the next normal.
Wow, thank you. I really love how you actually define the next normal, and it's interesting that you've mentioned and highlighted again what you've said around adaptability and agility. And again, the changes that are happening nowadays is so fast, and so unpredictable, as you've mentioned. And so I really appreciate that you remind us it's not really so much more about, yeah, we expect that there's unpredictability, right? But it's really about how will you handle it as a leader, how will you be able to adapt and to be agile enough to adapt to those changes that are happening around us. And so I mean, even before the next normal, for sure, like you've been like a corporate leader yourself, right? What would you say would be the top three problems that the leaders would normally face with, or prior, or post pandemic?
I actually think prior and post pandemic, the
Mm-hmm.
leaders are always facing the same problem. I think the first problem or opportunity is people,
Mm-hmm.
right? So always, because people make things happen. You
Mm-hmm.
get the right people and then you make it happen. If you don't get the right people and the right team, you never make it happen, right? So I do believe the first thing the leader should put efforts is get the right team, get the right people. And what is right people, right? And people may ask question, what is right people? Right people doesn't mean they just listen to what you said. Yes, listen to what you said and deliver what it's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just getting the job, right? If you think about, you measure the performance of your team, if five is the highest, getting things done is only three nowadays, right?
Mm-hmm.
Three out of five. And we have to stretch organization, put some challenging target to the team to perform toward five.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I mean by people. And people, because people can make a real difference. I think the second one is set up the clear direction for the team. either short-term goal or longer-term goal. Yes, because of unprediction, we may not be able to set up 5-year, 10-year strategy for the company anymore, but
Mm-hmm.
you can actually set up a short-term goal. I mean, given clear direction to the team where they want to go. The third one is enable the team, give them enough support to enable the team to act quickly in
Mm-hmm.
agile fashion, move fast, get things done, get it delivered. I think those are the three leadership quality specifically needed at this unpredicted time.
Thank you for sharing that. And again, you made mention a lot of important things that has been there. It's nothing so much new as you've mentioned, right? It's really so much about the people because they are the one who makes things happen, right? And of course, as a leader, you have to set the direction. You have to enable the team. Without empowering your team, you will not be able to also disseminate or distribute the work that has to be done as well. So, and obviously I really like the term that you use. It's not just a leadership problem but actually an opportunity as well, right? And I guess to for us to be able to turn that into opportunity, it's really so much more on like what are actually the important leadership capabilities or skills that you must have in order to stay relevant, in order to continue to lead more effectively.
Yeah, so I think first of all, right, being authentic, as I mentioned, that's
Mm-hmm.
how you lead effectively. I think the second one is being alert of the current situation. I do think the leader, if you want people having learning agility, yourself needs to have learning agility, right? So you need to know what's going on in the
Mm-hmm.
current world. You need to know what's going on with your competitors. You need to know what's going on in the industry. That is
Mm-hmm.
super important. I think back to the point, the leaders has to be close to the market, close to the customers. Anyone who's sat in the corporate office being remote to any customer, investors, or far away from what's going on, he or she will lose the game. So that's important. I do think leaders should spend enough time to go on the ground and understand what's going on there in different markets, specific in the global environment. That's super number one in priority. And second one is once you demo example that
Mm-hmm.
you are very close to customers, the market, to the business, your team will do the same, right? You have to
Mm-hmm.
lead by example. You don't want people sitting there not knowing what's going on, just making decision,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't even make sense for the organization. I think this is fundamentally that a leader make a difference. The second one is being able to make a tough decision.
Mm-hmm.
The tough decision could be you have to sacrifice the personal interest, you have to sacrifice even the team interest for the benefit of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And that tough decision often require leader to make it quickly, make a tough, bold decision where it's applicable. That's super important as a leader. I think the third one is really being out of box thinking, right? Creative. And that is harder to achieve because often when people being, I would call it complacent in the role, they probably lose the arm and lose the muscles to innovate.
Mm-hmm.
And that is basically, I think a good leader should constantly challenge him and herself, bring creative, innovative thinking into the organization. So those are what I think is very unique leadership skill sets. This stuff is never written down in any leadership book, right? So I think this is really what I see how the leaders make a difference.
Yeah, very true. And these are, I would say, some of the top leadership skills or capabilities that we need to build in this next normal, right? And I really love where you started with authenticity because, it's really starting about yourself, right? It's really working on yourself, leading yourself, and showing as you are. And again, innovation, which is like thinking out of the box as well, and making those, as I heard from some of the interviews I've already did as well, like, making bold and tough decisions, despite that, you're not going to be famous about that. And before I ask the next question, I just want to acknowledge Rose for giving us the like, and just and oh, thank you, Constance, for joining us today. I know it's nighttime for you. I like the leading by example. And the other one is creative thinking is super important. It's achieved through continuous improvement. Yes, thank you for sharing your thoughts as well, based on what Miao just also shared. And the next, so that leads me to my next question. So, what do you believe is the role of learning, leadership, and transformation in order to thrive in this next normal?
First of all, I want to clarify leadership doesn't mean leaders, doesn't mean you're senior. So the
Mm-hmm.
seniority in the organization is not necessarily equal to leadership, right? So I have to make it very clear. A manager managing people, telling people what to do
Mm-hmm.
is not necessarily a leader. I see leadership, I see leadership in the internship students in the past,
True. Mm-hmm.
right? So this is a very different concept. Let's not mix seniority and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
If I think I just want to clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
Back to your question, right? You
Mm-hmm.
say the learning agility, and also constantly challenge the organization on
Mm-hmm.
different thinking. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a given. It's a must.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about, hey, you don't have it. Let's add the icing on the cake. That is not nowadays. It's a must. It's a
True.
must. It's a basic leadership quality in the changing world, right? How
Mm-hmm.
you acquire those leadership quality is up to you.
True.
That is very important. If you don't know certain world, you have to learn quickly, figure
Mm-hmm.
out your own way to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what I see leaders actively, constantly challenging themselves,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of the seniority, regardless of their age. They learn. They have to. Nothing stops them from learning, really, really. And second one is being humble. Only you are humble, you
Mm-hmm.
have agility to learn. If you are very complacent, right? You basically close the door and you can't learn anymore.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that very straightforward answer, that, it's a responsibility. It's a must for us. Like, I remember that conversation I had with another leader. I think it was Millie. She said, learning is non-negotiable. It's a must, like what you said. Not only being able to learn, but having that learning agility, as you've mentioned. So thank you for that. And so I that leads me to my last two questions, which are very open questions, and I'm like very interested to know how actually you came up, or what was the thought process like, in terms of how did you get to that answer, right? So the first one, which I would call my Miss Universe questions, would be, um, if you have a magic wand and can use it, what will you do with it?
Yeah, unfortunately there's no magical wand, right? So I also don't believe this thing, to be honest, because the world is very, as we all know, the world is much harsher than what we imagined, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if there is a magic wand, I think it's basically it's all about ourselves, right? You have to roll your sleeves and work. Either work on your leadership, work on your business, work on your project, and that is the fundamental solve. Yeah, that yes, I know this is not the best answer, but basically there isn't such thing in this world. If you look at all the leaders, all the entrepreneur, the
Mm-hmm.
business, the CEOs, whoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody started from beginning by working
Mm-hmm.
hard. There's no magic wand, unfortunately, in this world. However, there are some tips of how you accelerate your leadership development, right? So there are some tips, right? I think the first one is self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Be always being self-aware, knowing where you are, your strengths, your weakness.
Mm-hmm.
That is very important. Second
Mm-hmm.
one is actually getting some help, getting some
Mm-hmm.
mentorship, getting some help from people from different industries, people from different companies, different organizations to advise you is always helpful for the development, for the leadership development. I would say those are probably additional two tips I like to give.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And that leads me to my last question, which is if you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would it be? And since you can best answer that question, um, can you please answer that as well for us?
I think the question I will ask myself, which I always ask myself on day-to-day basis, is what can you do to be better every day? What can you do differently to be better every day? That is a question I ask myself at the beginning of the day, at the beginning of the week, or at the beginning of the year.
I love that question. And that also like helps us think about like what can we do better, because a lot of times most humans will compare themselves to others, but again we have our own journey to take, right? And so it's really about being conscious on how you can be better on a daily basis, like what you said, asking that question on a regular basis to yourself. So before we end this conversation, I just wanted to also like share like Constance that is mentioning that she agrees with what you've said, the manager versus a leader earlier. And mentorship is huge according to her. So thank you for joining us in this live conversation, Constance, Dr. Constance Leyland. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. And again, thank you so much again, Miao, for taking time to have this live session. And I'm sure there will be a lot of entrepreneurs and leaders from around the globe that will be able to um, be inspired and also get something out of this conversation, right? So before we end this session, is there anything more that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yeah, I just want to leave one thought.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you're your own leader.
Mm-hmm.
You lead the way every day. So probably will be my thought that I
Mm-hmm.
like to give to everybody.
Thank you. I love that thought. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live, and for those who will watch us later on a replay. Um, do share with us what's your takeaway. What if you have any questions? I'll be tagging Meow as well. Um, so that she can also help you answer your questions. So thank you so much, Mel, for this very inspiring conversation. I really learned a lot from you. I'm actually taking notes while we're having the conversation. And again, let's all take this opportunity to be able to create a better world to live in, right? And invest in ourselves, in our self awareness, like what Meow also shared. So, with that, we would like to leave you with this quote that if your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you so much, Meow. Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thank you
day.
for having me. Thank you. Bye bye.
Pleasure. Bye for now.
Bye.